Good morning. Good morning. It is January 2nd, 2020. A new year has begun. A new year. Should we say another new year? Yes, I think we shall say it. Another new year. And the Lord spared us, giving us grace and mercy. Chilly today. It's a clear night. Cool and clear. It's cool this morning. Well, morning. This is in all of them, I think. All the hymnals. Pretty sure it is. It's number one in the Lord book. Number one in the Lord book. Inside. We're not going to do that this morning, baby. I love you, but we're not going to do that this morning. So bear with me 2 shakes of a lamb's tail, if you will, please. Afternoon. Awake, my soul, in joyful lays, and sing thy great Redeemer's praise. He justly claims a song from me, his loving kindness, oh, how free. He saw me ruined in the fall, but loved me, notwithstanding all. He saved me from my lost estate, his loving kindness, oh, how great. Though numerous hosts of mighty foes, though earth and hell my way oppose, he safely leads my soul along, his loving kindness, oh, how strong. When trouble, like a gloomy cloud, has gathered thick and thundered loud. He near my soul has always stood. His loving kindness, oh how good. Often I feel my sinful heart prone from my Jesus to depart. But though I have him oft forgot, his loving kindness changes not. Soon shall I pass this gloomy veil. Soon all my mortal powers must fail. Oh, may my last expiring breath his loving kindness sing in death. Then let me mount and soar away to the bright world of endless day, and sing with rapture and surprise his loving kindness in the skies. Now there's some repeats on the tune that's normally sung to this hymn. There on the eastern shore, Elder Poole didn't like to sing all the verses of a long one, particularly if there are these repeats. So we got in the habit of singing the repeats only on the first and the last verse. So after that, after the first verse, I'm only going to sing the 4 lines. And it works out. Awake my soul in joyful lays, and sing my great Redeemer's praise. He justly claims a song from me, his loving kindness, oh, how free. Loving kindness, his loving kindness, his loving kindness, oh, how free. He saw me ruined in the fall, yet loved me notwithstanding all. He saved me from my lost estate, his loving kindness, oh, how great. Though numerous hosts of mighty foes, though earth and hell my way oppose, he safely leads my soul along his loving kindness, oh, how strong. When trouble like a gloomy cloud has gathered thick and thundered loud, he near my soul has always stood, his loving kindness, oh, how good. Often I feel my sinful heart prone from my Jesus to depart. But though I have him oft forgot, his loving kindness changes not. Soon shall I pass the gloomy veil, soon all my mortal powers will fail. Oh, may my last expiring breath his loving kindness sing in death. Then let me mount and soar away to the bright world of endless day, and sing with rapture and surprise His loving kindness in the skies. Loving kindness, loving kindness, His loving kindness in the skies. Unless my mind has changed drastically, we're going to sing in order through the Lloyd book this year. And by drastically, I mean that each day holds its own particular well, as the Lord leads, we'll see what happens. Well, that's my plan right now anyway. Y'all bear with me just a second. I should have got this done better. There we go. That might work. Yeah, that's better. Morning to y'all that just come in. I was reading this week in the 1844 and 1845 Signs of the Times. As most of you know, Beebe every year, at the start of a new year, let's back up in the last volume of December, he would write a closing piece, and in the beginning he'd write a New Year piece. And I hope I got the right one. I think it's the 1844 one that I want to share with you this morning. The introduction to Volume 12. And here's what he had to say. 1844 years, according to the common register of time, have now elapsed since the angelic messengers surprised the shepherds in Jewry with the news of a Savior's advent to our guilty world. A glorious era was on that day begun on earth, worthy of the anthem which was sung by the heavenly choir. That Prince and Savior's name was brought down from heaven, announced and interpreted by an angel, because his name expressed the work which he came down from heaven to do. For he shall save his people from their sins. Joy, love, and gratitude swelled the hearts of Simeon and Anna, who had long waited to see the salvation of the Lord. Nor were these two devoted children of the Lord alone in their joys. For all who waited for the salvation of God to come out of Zion indulged with them the transporting raptures of that grand event. The Savior came. The heavens bore record that he was the Son of God. His star appeared in the eastern sky, and the wise men were guided by it to the humble birthplace of the King of Glory. Angels amazed look on, beheld the condescension of the blessed Redeemer. From his manger to his cross, he was treated by the religionists of that age as his truth and people have been by the same class from that period down to the present time. Loaded down with reproach, slandered, derided, persecuted, and blasphemed, he was a man of sorrow and acquainted with grief. To do and to suffer all that was written of him in the law, the prophets, and the Psalms were his meat and drink, until he had accomplished all his Father's will. And then with extended arms and bleeding heart most solemnly declared, "It is finished," and gave up the ghost. Sinking down under the load of transgressions of his dearly loved people, he poured out his soul unto death, was laid into his grave, and suffered his sepulchre to be watched by a guard of soldiers. But at the appointed morning unbarred the doors of death, and left the environs of the new tomb. Begotten from the dead, his Father recognized him. "Thou art my Son. This day have I begotten thee." He sought, he found, he made himself known to some of those for whom he died, and gave them assurance he was risen indeed, and became the first fruits of them that slept. Henceforth he is seen standing in triumph on Mount Zion, as the Lamb that was slain, and saying, "I am he that was dead, and am alive, and behold, I live forevermore, and have the keys of hell and death." Who that has trusted his love, felt the application of his atoning blood, been clothed in his spotless righteousness, can contemplate his advent, his life, death, and resurrection, and exaltation to the right hand of the Majesty on high, with cold indifference, or need the revolving wheels of time to bring about the season of the year in which it is customary to interchange congratulations or wish each other a happy new year. Why should the enemies of our God, the persecutors of our Savior Jesus Christ, the despisers of his gospel, and those who hate his people and his truth, be more happy that a new anniversary of the Advent has arrived? It cannot be because that by the constant stream of time they are hurried on still nearer to the perdition of ungodly men, and certainly not because they feel an interest in the Savior's cause. But it must be regarded as an evidence of the blindness of the state which they are in. Excuse me. Keziah, get out, baby. Thank you. With this new year, we are permitted to present our readers with a sheet of our new volume of the Signs of the Times. We need not recapitulate all the difficulties we have had to encounter, all the labors and toils that we have been sustained under. It is sufficient for the present to say that, quote, "Having obtained the help of God, we continue. Because our God changeth not, we are not consumed, and because his mercy endureth forever, we are encouraged to go on with the work." This next part is what I want us to consider. I'm not talking about a paper, just talking about the situation in general. Okay? In regard to our prospects, we hope to be sustained in a pecuniary point of view by the liberality of our friends in patronizing us, by contributing as formerly to aid us in meeting the expenses of the work. We have not the ability to print and publish a sheet like this semi-monthly without the aid of our friends, nor do they expect it at our hands. It is for them that we labor. For them we first engaged in the work. And when they think proper to withdraw their aid, the work must stop. We commenced. This is where I wanted to get to. In this part right here. Well, the next paragraph. Consider this. We commenced our publication when there was no other publication of the kind in the field, and when there was not another brother of our order within our knowledge willing to hazard the expense of getting up such a publication. We advised with such brethren as we knew to be with us in sentiments, and they gave us all the encouragement they could to go on. Remember, Parker's paper was finished in 1831. Beebe's Signs of the Times didn't come out till nearly the end of 1832, November if I remember right. When the first meeting ever called by the Old School Baptists of the United States was held at Black Rock, Baltimore County, Maryland, we attended. And by vote of that meeting, our publication was recommended to the favorable consideration of the Old Order of Baptists throughout the country. Now, I know some people are going to say Kehookie's declaration was first, but that was at an association, not a special called meeting of the Old School. That's what how Beebe's talking about this. So don't get all upset. He's not denying that there were others in the field before them. This is just the first called meeting of the Old Order of Baptists, soon to be denominated Old School or Primitive. It was exceedingly doubtful, however, at that time whether a sufficient support could be obtained to meet one half the inevitable expense of the work. But with the assurance of our brethren that they would exert themselves to sustain it, we undertook. Our brethren redeemed their pledge. And with the assistance of our enemies, whose violent opposition led them to publish us in their minutes and other publications, and thereby advise the oppressed among them of our undertaking, we were successful in our efforts. Beebe gives credit to the enemies of the Old School in saying, hand that nasty Signs of the Times, that awful thing, and those poor burdened souls who have been laboring under the untruths of the Arminian missionary gospel, got to say, hey, we got to check this Signs of the Times out. With much hard labor, indefatigable perseverance, and strict economy, we struggled through the first 3 or 4 years of our toil, encountering the most severe embarrassments, until at length we had obtained a subscription list of nearly 3,000 names, and spreading over nearly all states and territories belonging to our country. Can you believe that? 1835, 1836, he had nearly 3,000 subscribers. No internet, no telephones, no telegraphs. Well, telegraphs, excuse me. No telephones. Mail service was pretty good. In every state and territory. Our paper, in the meantime, had been the means of making the Old Order of Baptists acquainted with each other, and of raising a formidable defense against the imposing religious inventions of those who bore our own name. Thousands who had felt themselves left alone in the field, and, like the ancient people, had lamented that the Lord's altars were thrown down, his prophets killed, their own lives sought for, were hunted out, comforted, and encouraged to buckle on their armor and again face the enemy. Think about that for just a minute. Beebe was not reticent to call the missionary Baptist the enemy as much as the Roman Catholic, the Presbyterian. Because at this time, you got to remember, I would think it would still be at this time, was a little while before that it started. Ezra Stiles Ely, the big Presbyterian preacher in Philadelphia, was trying to start a Christian party in politics to take over the government and make sure that God's law was enforced. Oh, as interpreted by Ezra Stiles Ely and the other Presbyterians of like faith and order. What do you think they'd have done to some Baptist heretics? Ooh, doggies, don't you know? From various causes, our list of subscribers is reduced to about 2,000. Any periodical among the old order of Baptists, whatever faction, would have loved to have had 2,000 subscribers. And of that number, several hundred do not pay. Some are supplied gratuitously, others from inability or neglect omit to forward their dues. The patronage of our order is now divided among several periodicals, which have been commenced subsequently to ours. You had the Doctrinal Advocate and Monitor, you had the Primitive Baptist, you had the Western Predestinarian Baptist at this time that I know of. Boom, boom, boom. I can think of those right off the top of my head. And our opposition to certain heresies which have obtained in some sections of our widespread country has also a tendency to circumscribe our circulation. We do not wish to be understood as complaining of the existence of other papers in the field. Far from it. If the same cause in which we are engaged is absurd, if the same important truth which we have contended for is asserted and defended, it is of very little consequence by whom. It was not for our convenience we were induced to embark in the work, and however much our embarrassments may be increased by the multiplication of periodicals purporting to set forth the doctrine and order of the old school Baptists, we will cheerfully hail as welcome contemporaries such as contend for the faith once delivered to the saints. We feel a desire that Brother Jewett may be sustained. That's the Doctrinal Advocate and Monitor. As we feel convinced that his utmost energies are enlisted in behalf of Zion, and his periodical will exert a healthful influence on the old school Baptist cause. The Primitive Baptist also publishes much solid truth, but, pardon us, we do think that a periodical purporting to present the doctrine of the old school Baptist ought to be under the supervision of a member of our communion. I probably should have saved this for tomorrow. Of the Western Predestinarian Baptist, we have hitherto forborne to remark. We have only seen a few numbers, very few numbers, and have not been able to form so flattering of an opinion of it as we could wish. The widespreading heresy of what is termed the two-seed doctrine ought to receive no countenance from those who claim to be old-school, old-fashioned Baptists. From the days of John the Baptist until the days of Elder Daniel Parker, the doctrine was unknown among the Baptists, and God has been considered the creator of all things. We doubt not that many well-meaning brethren have been drawn into the error, and some have withdrawn their subscriptions from our list because of our opposition to the new theory, and others because we have refused to suffer our columns to be filled with long articles written in defense of that absurd theory. We have been complained of bitterly as being unfair to oppose that theory and refuse its advocates the use of our columns for its defense. If the two-seed doctrine had ever been held as a part of the faith distinguishing the Baptists of former ages, we should not feel at liberty to shut out the defense of its advocates. But, as it is a new theory among those who claim to be Baptist, we treat it as we do the Arminian, the Campbellite, and the Arian heresy. And if our course should subject us to the loss of all our subscribers, and in addition thereto to the loss of life itself, we cannot wink at, nor in any manner directly or indirectly countenance what we conceive to be involved in that absurd doctrine. We have no disposition to claim for ourselves infallibility. None can be more sensible of the imperfections which mark and mar all that we say and do. But a sense of our weakness and liability to err does not exonerate us from the responsibility resting on us to oppose what we know to be a departure from the simplicity of the gospel of Christ. Our desire is to contend only for the faith which was once delivered to the saints, both publicly and privately, in the pulpit and through the press. But for the ability to do so, we are as dependent on God as any of our brethren. And he closes it with an appeal to get more subscribers. Notice his opposition to two-seedism is based solely, seemingly by this, on the fact that it doesn't view God as the creator of all things. And based on some of the things we've read from Elder Parker, it seems that Beebe is only addressing the principle that the mystery of iniquity is as eternal as the mystery of godliness. That's what it looks like to me based on this. I'm not going to read his appeal for more subscriptions, but I want to read this. And this is how he actually closes it. I'd like to have more subscribers to this channel. But it is. Alright. We are far from believing that it is time to throw off our armor. Brother, I'm going to give you a little more current history here. When some trouble came up, and several of the ministers in parts of North Carolina and Virginia were accused by others of the old school of being conditionalist, sympathizing with conditionalists, wanting to run with conditionalists, etc., etc. When it was brought before Elder Spangler, he looked at the person that told him that and said, "Well, I fought that battle 50 years ago." As if that was it. Because he fought that battle, the war was over. He and an Elder Wilson had quite the controversy over it. Split churches and associations. If I remember right, that was right at the beginning of his ministry. It wasn't time then to lay off the armor. You couldn't lay your armor by. It wasn't that the battle was over, the warfare was over. He may have won a battle, but it didn't stop the war. I'm sure some were saying that same thing to Beebe. Well, we've done fought that fight. It's over. No, it isn't. The warfare is still with us. We are far from believing that it is time to throw off the armor. The enemy still comes in like a flood. And it becomes us who have taken a stand against the delusions of the times to deport ourselves as good soldiers of the cross of our illustrious leader and never yield 1 inch of ground to the common foe. Never yield 1 inch of ground to the common foe. Quote, put yourselves in array against Babylon, round about all ye that bend the bow. Shoot at her, spare no arrows is the word of our commander. Let not a rag of her stolen livery remain to hide her abominable iniquity. Quote, take away her battlements, for they are not the Lord's, close quote. And as we follow our captain to the field of combat, let us cheer each other with words of comfort, not forgetting that we have some in our ranks who have been sorely bruised and wounded by the enemy. These need our care and sympathy. Some young recruits also, which the Lord is bringing to require to be drilled and encouraged. We have nothing to lose in this warfare. We have everything to stimulate us to press forward. Quote, the weakest saint shall win the day, though hell and death have struck the way. We have the assurance that of our God, that the saints shall triumph through the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. Onward then, ye soldiers of the cross, to victory. Quote, and when our general Christ shall come, we'll sound a trumpet, not a drum. Then we'll march up the heavenly street and ground our arms at Jesus' feet. As for ourselves, we hope that our 11 years campaign has made us somewhat familiar with some of the devices of our old adversary and some of the base trickery of his legions. We feel disposed with all the ability our Lord shall bestow to stand to our post, and although less than the least of all saints, record the progress of truth and the exposure of error. It's true. The enemies within are the far more dangerous. And that's what it was tried to point out to him, to Elder Spangler at that time, that there were still enemies. That we weren't as separated from the errors as he thought we were. Brethren, when we went through the book of Galatians, remember what Paul wrote? Stand fast, therefore, in the liberty wherewith Christ hath made you free, and be not entangled again with the yoke of bondage. There's all kinds of bondage that the saints of God need to fear, need to look for, and need to reject, overthrow, and say, no, you shall not lay your chains upon us. Are you with me? Or you've been called to. Called peace, love, liberty. And where one would try to bind up the saints of God and hold the legalism of the law. That's a lousy expression, isn't it? And hold legalism over them. And the law, not found in the gospel of Christ. We must reject it. We must reject it. Totally. Think about this just for a moment. What you walk by? Faith or sight? I believe we talked about this when we went through the book of Galatians, didn't we? Man by nature wants rules. And wants lots of them. And he wants to hold everybody in the world, if he could, to those rules. Kissy, stop that. Faith is opposed to it. Do you agree? The rule of law and the rule of faith are two different things. Radically different. Now, brethren, I know I'm just an ignorant old Loki, which is why Brother Ray is picking at me. Ignorant, that's all I am. That's all I've ever claimed to be. I know that, like Bibi, I need God's teaching and God's Spirit to lead. And if I try to do it myself, I'm going to make myself some rules. Because I'm not any different than any other man. No, I'm not. I'm not any different after the flesh. And are you ready for this? I'm not any different after the Spirit. Than any other redeemed child of God. We are all made to drink of the same Spirit, aren't we? The rivers of living water, which are symbolic of the Spirit of God. We're all made to drink of them. We're made to rejoice in that river, and we're made to partake of it. And we're made to see that that's what will satisfy our thirst. And not water from the cisterns of this world. Because Jeremiah tells us all about those people. They hew out cisterns to themselves. But you know what? They can't hew them out a cistern right, because when they hew out a cistern, it's a broken cistern. They can hold no water. And when they cry, come and drink out of this, it's empty. And it can't satisfy. Because there's nothing there for the children of God. Nothing there. And brethren, when we try to walk by law, it's the same. We go into a broken cistern. You believe that? I do. That law's broken. Man, is it broken. Broken by you, broken by me, broken by everyone. There's not a soul on this world that can say, I've kept that law perfectly from my youth up. How could you do that when you came forth from the womb speaking lies? And remember this, because a lot of people seem to forget it. He that offends in one point is guilty of the whole law. You see, when you sin that first time, you become a lawbreaker. And it matters not whether you broke Commandment 1, Commandment 4, Commandment 5, Commandment 10. Doesn't matter. You're a lawbreaker. Because the whole law stands and falls together. That's why I can't go with the Catholics and the Reformers and the Reformed so-called Baptists that say there's a Christian Sabbath. No, there's not. And it's the first day of the week. You could change it. God never changed his Sabbath. Sabbath's the seventh day. And listen to me, there remaineth therefore a rest for the people of God that Sabbath typified. He that is at rest has ceased from his labors as God has from his. Let me tell you something. That means for salvation. That means all of it. If my memory's right, it's been over a year that we've been doing this. Maybe it's been published in the Science 11 years for that. I don't know whether that's the one I really wanted to read or 1845. A little more about money and finances and getting the paper out than I wanted. But I wanted you to see it had 3,000 subscribers by 1836, 4 years in. I can't imagine sending out 3,000. If I remember right, the most we ever sent out of the remnant was about 1,250. And it kept weeding itself down to where we had right at between 800 and 1,000 subscribers, if I remember right. It would go up and it would go down. People would be taken off, new people would be put on. It did go all over the world. What am I getting at? Hard to go into all that mess. I want you to know. I want you to consider. Think about why these things happen. Why BB had 3,000 subscribers after 4 years. The population is greater, and yet it's gone down. Why there were churches and associations all over this country. I was reading in the Western Predestinarian Baptist last night. Guy went up to Michigan Territory, Wisconsin Territory, maybe Wisconsin Territory, I can't remember. Spent 5 months up there from Illinois. Five months up there preaching. The funniest one was he found a church that was duped by a missionary Baptist preacher claiming to be an old school Baptist. Constituted them into a church, left them. My. Oh, I agree the Lord has purpose in it, brother. That's not the question. The question is, humanly speaking, why? We know the Lord's purpose is going to stand. If it's His purpose to have 20 churches in one county in West Virginia, if it's his purpose to have no churches in the state of Pennsylvania, thy will be done. But we know, don't we? We know that at one time, people held to the old school Baptist principles all over this nation. I mean, all over this nation. Now, people talk about it being a southern thing. It was never a southern thing. There were lots of churches in the South, but there were churches in the Northeast, New England, Mid-Atlantic, and in the North Central territories and states. I don't know how many there was at the Upper Country Line the only year I went. I would think there was at least 2,000. That was when it was the Upper Country Line, before the West Country Line Union and all that mess started. And I mentioned the fact that on the Eastern Shore, if it was an election year, every politician on the shore would go to the Salisbury Association. Not because they believed it, so they could politic during lunch. Because if they could get the old Baptist vote, it'd swing an election. Well, brethren, my message to you for New Year's is, be strong in the Lord and the power of his might, and lean not to your own understanding. Stand for truth, regardless of who opposes you. And when you read the scriptures of truth, don't give them that cursory examination that the Arminian does. Neither be like the Calvinist and have to run to your commentary section of your libraries to figure it out. But prayerfully meditate on what the Lord is trying to show you. Lessons sometimes come like that, and sometimes they don't. The Lord is pleased to teach you in different ways. Sometimes it's boom, and sometimes it's line upon line and precept upon precept, and you need to stop and consider to get the full gist of it. You go bind the Lord to your box and say He's got to just slap it in you every time? No. We're not like that. Now, there are some folks that think that, but we're not like that. We know that the Lord does things in His good time and in His good way and at His good pleasure for His good will and glory. And that includes the teaching of His people. Remember what John wrote. You need not that any man teach you, if you have the Spirit of God. Oh. Yes, thank you. Isn't that the truth? Lean not to your own understanding. Remember this. There's a way that seems right unto a man. What's the end? I believe that's in Proverbs twice, and one time it says the end thereof is the way of death, and the other time the end thereof is the way of destruction. I don't want either one of them by that. Although if I am what I hope and profess to be, death would be a welcome thing. Because I'll get to be with my Lord. Oh, it wouldn't be heaven if I didn't see Aunt Susie there. If that's your idea of heaven, I have to wonder. Don't you want to see Jesus? Well, thank you, brother, but what did Paul say? I have a desire to depart and be with Christ, which would be better for me. For me to remain, it might be better for you. I don't think my remaining is going to be better for anyone like that, like the apostles was. But I, like all men, am in the hand of the Lord for Him to do with as He will. Yes, that's a blessed hope. That's the most blessed hope, and the only blessed hope. Any other hope that we have is just vain expectation and sorry conjecture. Jesus is our all in all. Without Him, there would be no heaven for any of us. Because He is the one who has made us fit. You didn't fit yourself for heaven, did you? Did you make yourself fit? Did you? A lot of people think they're making themselves fit for heaven. They're not. You're either made fit by the blood of Christ, and the imputation of his righteousness to you. Or you ain't going to be there. Oh, to be robed and ready. We desire to be clothed upon. Well, brother, I'm going to hush. Any other questions or comments, please make them now. If y'all will excuse me 1 minute and I can get these cats off me. I need to see if my dryer's finished. Lord willing, I'll be right back. Oh, Kizzy, let's get down, baby. Come on, Andy, you too, bud. Come here, Andy. I need to wipe your eyes out. I'll get her wet right and do that. Oh, mercy. Oh, goodness. Knock that down. Oh, that baby talking about the signs of the times. Well, I don't collect money for any publication anymore. You know what I mean? Goodness gracious. Forgive me for doing all this. No, I'm not collecting money. BB was talking about collecting money. And I wanted to apologize kind of for that, but not that it's wrong if you want to support but periodical. Do it. Forgive me for nibbling. someone was going to publish a book. I don't remember. I apologize. Yeah, it could be Brother Ray for the books that he's done. Well, they had the home fund after the home was closed. The home was in Salisbury. It remained active as a rest home till the 60s. Till the 60s, I believe. Then it was sold, and the money put in the home fund, and the home fund was. I got some statements of the home fund. It was still going on when I moved up there in '81. I think finally they gave the home fund money to the Signs of the Times, but I wouldn't swear to that. I know they didn't distribute it near like I thought they should, but I wasn't a part of it. Even though they still had representatives from the supposed Salisbury Association, which wasn't in existence at that time, in the home fund. Come on, get out. Well, Brother Frank Holland, deacon at Snow Hill Church, was a member. Was a trustee of the home fund. Victor Laws, member of Salisbury Church. You never knew there was? Oh, yes, yes. If you go to Salisbury now and inquire for the Hotel Esther, where the Hotel Esther was, if it's still standing, that was the old Baptist home. Yes, it was. Seems like it was a Sister Maud Morris that ran it. Forgive me, brethren, I don't want my sugar to drop. So I'm nibbling. Cashew nuts and sesame sticks. Nobody wanted to come to the Eastern Shore to be in that nursing home after a while. Yes, as far as I know, it is. As I say, the building was sold, and the monies that were left, and the money from the sale of the building, which became a hotel, the Hotel Esther in Salisbury, which by the time I came up there was a flop house. But they still met and they still gave some people money. Not near what they should have, in my opinion. If you remind me, Brother Richard, second Sunday, there in the table, the drawer, are some statements from the home fund. We'll take a look at them. I want to say that after the last person to whom they were just giving a pittance died, that they finally gave that money to the Science of the Times Incorporated. Now, I could be wrong on that, just as wrong as can be. I remember some of them didn't want to do that. They didn't. People didn't. Yeah, Brother Frank was, and Charles Osborne were representatives of the Delaware Association to the Home Fund. Mm-hmm. They sure were. And like I say, Frank Holland at Snow Hill and Victor Laws from Salisbury were representatives of the Salisbury Association, even after the Salisbury Association had dissolved. New York churches were still representing themselves. Victor Borst and Gertrude Secor, I think. Or what was the other old brother's name, other than not Adsit. There's another old brother up there in New York. And then you had some of the southern churches involved, associations. Oh yeah. I shouldn't say this because I don't know for sure. But in Virginia, some of them sold meeting houses, and it wasn't for the benefit of elders, it was the benefit of trustees. And I believe it benefited the trustees financially. In the sale of a meeting house. Because it's interesting, I saw the deed. This is before I became a landman, didn't know as much about reading deeds as I do now. But even then, it was strange that it was the trustees of two churches who sold this meeting house of one of those two churches. And I still think it's strange. And knowing one of the people involved, well, I hate to say it, but I wouldn't put it past them. Well, brethren, this is a lot more fun than what I am getting ready to do, which is laundry. Finish up some laundry. Put some in the washer and take some from the washer to the dryer. Oh boy, oh joy. I don't mind ironing, but I don't even though I'm not doing anything. I just hate gathering up laundry and separating it and washing it. I really do. Anything else, brethren? I've got some home fund things around here too. I'll see if I can't. Some of the later ones, I believe. So I'll look and see if I don't have some of them and give y'all heads up on it tomorrow. Absolutely. I'll tell you, I despise, even though Wells Tract Church is incorporated, I despise the incorporation of a church, and I think trustees are useless for the most part. But you can see why they got them. And you can see why people did it. Because there's certain rules you got to follow. You know, if you're incorporated. If you're incorporated, you can't just sell the meeting house and divvy up the money. You got to have a receiver corporation to receive it. Things of that nature. It was incorporated long before I got there. In fact, it was incorporated, I think, at least 100 years before I got there. So, there you go. Well, is there anything else, brethren? Let's bow. Lord, strengthen us for this coming year. Enable us to stand. We know that there can nothing befall us but what comes from thy hand. And it's for our good if we are thy children. Look down upon us and pity us. Vouchsafe thine aid unto us. Keep us in the way everlasting. Hold us in thy hand. Direct our paths. Direct our feet upon the path that thou would have us go. Remember the sure mercies of David. Remember thy covenant. And bless us in it. For it's in Jesus' name we ask. Amen. Hey, cats. You know, they bought Lord's hymn book. Maybe where they could make money. Well, yeah. Let me say this about the Lord's hymn book and other things of that nature. I have no problem with making a little money. No problem at all. Not breaking even, making a little money. Because if you're going to print it again, it's going to cost more than it did the first time. Now, somebody said, you're not trusting God to help you. Oh, yes, I am. But I'm also knowing that if anybody does get to do it, it needs to be the funds to make it happen. Sure, somebody could donate it. And let me tell you something, you're going to be beholden to that donor. But now, an exorbitant profit, now that's another story. But to make a little money so that you can continue the operation, it may be looking at things in a fleshly manner. And I know I've still got the flesh, and it might be, and I'm not going to say it isn't. But I think we need to think about things like that too. And if the profit is there for somebody to draw a salary off of, that's another story too. Well, that can be too. If your profit's exorbitant, I know it is. You're burdening. We made a little money on the BB books and the Trot, the books we published. We made a little money. We didn't make the kind of money that Zondervan and Baker and the big publishers would make. But we made a little money. And we still needed donations to print. We did. We still needed them. Even though we were making money. But that's because we printed so many. Or most of them. I can't remember what we sold the BB hymnal for. But we made a little money, and we should have printed twice as many. Oh, I reminisce about this. A big publisher, if you see a book that sells for $25, know that it cost him about $12.50 to $14. If you today, was looking at a book on the Primitive Baptist. I can't remember the title, thank goodness, but they wanted $100 for it, I believe. I say that it was somewhere between $80 and $120, and I'm saying 100 just for a round figure. Got two choices on that. Either they didn't print many, or they're trying to gouge. They know they ain't gonna sell any, hardly, so they're gouging the public. And that's wrong. I know my hardback copy of Williams's Radical Reformation, I believe, it cost me either $100 or $150. Because I had to sell a case of paperbacks to make that much money. And I was able to sell a case of the paperback ones, which at the time was selling retail for $50, if I remember right. I think I sold them for $50 postpaid. I paid the postage if you wanted book rate. I don't even remember how much was in the case. I know I made enough to pay for my hardbound. Real books are expensive, particularly short runs. So that's why I'm not publishing any right now. I'd love to put Volume 8 of BB together. But to print it, have copies on hand, do all that. Even if somebody donate the money, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't. Much as I'd like to. Much as I'd like to see it in print. Well, this isn't getting my laundry finished, brethren. I appreciate your patience with me. I appreciate your attention. I appreciate your comments today. Now, finally, y'all making some comments. And I hope to see you tomorrow. And Lord richly bless you.